everyone, today we're going to be making a coat for your doll. I'm going to try and make it as basic and easy as possible, and I'm going to try and make it adaptable to fit whichever size doll you want it to fit. You will need some pins, a means of sewing, either a needle and thread or a sewing machine, and you'll need some scissors, and you'll need a piece of fabric that is double the length you want your coat to be. So we want it to go from the back of the doll's neck down to as long as you want it to be, and you need to have your fabric double that length. So my fabric's folded over, I've got double the fabric that I need, and it needs to be as wide as your doll's arms when they are outstretched. So stretch them out as far as they'll go, like this, and just cut just past there. So you should have a square of fabric that's double the length you want it to be and just a little bit wider than your doll with her arms outstretched. The next thing we need to do is find the back of the doll's neck. So to do that, fold this piece of material over again, fold it in half like this, and then right in the corner here, mark with a pin, and that will be the back of your doll's neck. So the next thing you need to do is decide whether you want your coat to be loose or tight. For this coat, I want it to be fairly loose, so I need to cut it. If I wanted it to be tight, I'd need to cut it quite close to her body, making sure to leave a seam allowance. So if I wanted it to be tight, I'd cut it along here, but I want it to be a bit looser, so I'm going to cut it a little bit wider than that because I want this coat to wrap around her. So I'm going to cut up like this, up to the arm, and then cut straight across. Once you're touching the arm, this arm, remember, is at an angle. When it's in, it'll be up here like that. And then once you've cut up to there, we need to cut straight across. Now take your piece of fabric that you've cut out and lay it on the other side like this, and that'll give you the exact same size for that side too. So cut that out again, the other side, you can save these pieces in case you wanted to add pockets or anything, so don't throw those away. So then what we're left with is this little T shape that's got the pin where the back of the neck is. The next thing we need to do is open it out like this, with pins here, and we need to fold it in half lengthways like this. And along this fold here, we need to cut from the bottom. This is going to be the bottom of the coat up to the neck. This is going to be the back of the neck. So this will be the opening at the front. So we need to cut along that seam. So here we are, here's what we're left with. We're left with this sort of a long cross shape. This is the back of the coat. These are the sleeves, and this is going to be the front of the coat, and this is the opening along the front. Now we need to make a hole for the neck to go in. So this little pin is the back of the neck. We need to cut a circle just in front of that. So I'm going to use my bobbin here for my circle. And I'm going to cut a circle about the size of that bobbin, just around there, making sure that you have it in front of that. That's the back of her neck. This is the front of her neck, and we need to just cut around there for her head to go to fit in there nicely. So cut it could be a penny. You don't even have to use anything. Some people can do it without using anything. So, or you could draw around it if your fabric is lighter. So I'm just going to cut around my little circle there to make a hole for a neck to go through. There we are. So now we have this shape. So our neck's going to go through there. This is the front of the coat, and that's the back of her neck. We don't need that pin in there anymore. So the next thing we need to do is fold our coat right sides together. This is the right side because it's a bit fluffier. So we've got our sleeve here. Pin your sleeve, pin or tack your coat into position. So I've got my pins in position, and the next thing I'm going to do is sew along the seam of the arm, down the side of the coat, and then the same on the other side, along this seam and down this side. So I'll come back to you when I've got that done. So I've finished the sewing now. We're back to our T shape with the opening at the front, and I've sewn along the bottom of the sleeve there and down the side, and I've done the same on the other side. Sewed the sleeve seam together and sewed down the side of the coat. The next thing we need to do is turn it the right way out, like this. And now what you're left with is, because I've made this out of fleece, it doesn't fray. If you're using a different fabric that does fray, make sure you leave room for your seam, make sure you leave seam allowances so that you can edge your fabric if it needs edging. If you use felt or fleece or fur, you won't need to edge it, but if you use something like cotton or silk, you will need to edge it. So bear that in mind when you're cutting it out. At this stage, this garment could be a dressing gown if it was made out of toweling. It could be a kimono if it was made out of a cotton or silky material. It could be a dressing gown. You could cut it shorter and make it into a jacket or a short kimono jacket, depending on what fabric you've used. So it's very versatile. This pattern can be used for any size doll. Just follow the instructions to have your fabric double the length that you want it and the width of your doll past her hands. So let's try it on the doll. So I'm using, this is Leather and Ruffles, Fashionista Leather and Ruffles, and she's on a made to move body, and I've named her Harper. So Harper's our model for today. So here's Harper in her long winter coat. I think the next thing I'm going to do is make a tie to go around her waist. But otherwise, for the basic coat, you're finished. Now I have made another coat, and I've made it, this is the other coat that I've made. I've made it more fancy, and I've made it out of different material. So the things I've done to this coat that are different to that one is, I've made it more fitted, so I cut it in tighter here, and I've made the sleeve smaller. I've edged the sleeve and the neck with fur. This is just some fur I bought from eBay. I got a big bundle of fur offcuts, and this was in it. And it's like fake sheepskin. So I've cut little strips off it, like this, and used them to edge the sleeves and the collar, and then I've cut even smaller pieces to pop on top of the pockets. The pockets, I just drew the shape I wanted onto a piece of material and cut them out, and I've glued them on, just gluing the edge. And then I've fastened it with Velcro. I've added Velcro to fasten it with. So that's another option you can have. And I was inspired to make these coats by this coat, which was sent to me by Karen. Karen's made a sheepskin effect coat. It really is gorgeous. She's used cotton wool instead of fur, which looks really good. And she's put the fur underneath the arm where the seams are and around the edge of the pockets. And then there's two little buttons here, and this coat also fastens with Velcro. Gorgeous. I love that coat. So if you wanted to, you could put, I didn't want to put buttons on this one, but if you wanted to, you could do. The buttons you can get from eBay, these little tiny buttons. If you type in doll buttons, it'll come up with a variety of buttons, and it'll give you what size they are. These are teeny tiny, about 5mm buttons. I typed in doll buttons, and that's what came up. Also, this doll, she's called Celeste, is wearing a fur headband. That was really easy to make, so I'll show you how I made that. Another coat I've made was for my Moxie teen girl. I made hers out of leopard print felt, and I've edged it all in black, and I've made it shorter, and I made it looser so it sort of comes out in a bell shape. And I didn't put any fastenings on that one. I didn't think she needed it because it wrapped around her okay. So I've trimmed that one in black fur, and it is some leopard print felt. Her headband is made of black fur to match the trimming on her coat, and it is basically just a headband. I literally measured the strip of fur around her head and then cut it to the size and sewed a seam up the back. Right sides facing, sew it together. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So then back to this coat. Because it's nice and loose and it wraps over, I'm going to make her a tie to go around the middle. And I want the tie to be quite long. So we could either do that with a piece of ribbon or cord. Or you could even cut a strip of, fabric you've used to make the coat. So there's my ribbon. Let's get the fabric I used to make the coat and cut a strip of that. We'll see what looks best. So find a straight edge. And because this fabric doesn't fray, you can do that. You can just cut a long strip and use it as a belt. If the fabric frayed, you wouldn't be able to do that. So let's try tying this around her middle. I want it to be quite tight because she looks a bit like a Yeti at the minute, doesn't she? Let's tighten it up a bit and see if we can make it look a bit more. So I've tied that there, and then I'm just going to cut that off at an angle. So there we are, she's ready for an evening out in her coat. Also, it could double as a dressing gown. If it was made of toweling, it could be a bathrobe. Use your imagination and you can make anything you want to with this basic tutorial. So this is the more fancy version, which, like I say, I made it tighter in the body and tighter in the arms. So let's put that on her and show you what it looks like. There we are, there she is in that one. So it's entirely up to you how you decorate your coat, if indeed you decorate it at all. Now, to make the headband, get some of the edging that matches your coat, wrap it around your doll's head, covering her ears, because that's the idea, is that it covers her ears. Cut your piece of trimming to the right length to go around her head. So I need to cut mine just there. Then with your trimming right sides together, just stitch it closed at the back there. Just a couple of stitches will do it, just over stitch across that there. It doesn't fray, this fabric doesn't, so I don't need to worry about that. There we are. Turn it back the right way out, pop it over her ears, and she's all ready to go and do her shopping or whatever it is she's going to do in a nice warm coat. So that tutorial was requested by the Real Prince Club. The Real Prince Club, I hope that was helpful to you. I hope it was helpful to some of the rest of you too. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.